Hey everyone. So you've just learned about emails and how they're electronic. They're usually sent between people who work at the same workplace. They're more casual, conversation based, and they could be sent to people outside of a workplace too. Most likely though, emails are sent between people who work at the same place. A little more informal. They're short, quick back and forth responses, and that's pretty much it with emails. So this next part of the course, we're learning about letter format. Letters are very formal, and they're usually written to people outside of an organization. Different people who work at different workplaces send letters to each other. So they're a lot more formal, especially just in how they're designed. Emails, for example, are short, paragraph, half a page or less. Letters can be usually a full page. They're often encouraged. You want to assume they'll eventually be printed on formal paper. So the way you format them is print friendly as well. And we'll talk about that shortly. They don't have to be. They certainly can be electronic as well, but you assume they'll be printed on formal paper. So the way they're formatted and aligned is very different as well. You keep the tone formal. You don't use any kind of slang. Still conversation based. You want to write it to an everyday audience, of course, but you keep the tone formal, professional, I should say. And what makes something letter format, the reason I want to just take some time going over letter format is also letters are often written, they can certainly be written for one person between two people, but most likely in professional spaces, they're written to a large population of people. An entire city, an entire state, an entire country can receive one letter addressed to them. So your project that we're kind of learning about this week is the nonprofit letter. So that's a prime example of it being written to more than one person, an entire community. So that's why letters are more efficient for that type of audience. You write them for the general public in a way too. So I wanted to talk about the nonprofit letter itself with this student sample. This student sample, sorry, I'm zooming in and out. I hope I'm not getting you kind of dizzy. I'm on my iPad. It's a little easier to highlight stuff and zoom in. I wanted to go over the student sample of this project so that you can kind of see what one can look like. It's available to you on Canvas as well if you need to download it. But I wanted to talk about letter format using this sample. This is letter format because it has what's called a letterhead at the top. A letterhead is basically just your contact information and the recipient, the person or people who you're sending the letter to, their contact information. So the goal of this project is you're going to represent a nonprofit, any nonprofit you'd like. It doesn't have to be local to you. It can be anywhere you'd like. But you're putting yourself in that rhetorical situation by assuming that you work and represent this nonprofit. So a letterhead starts with your name at the top, the address in which your nonprofit is located, the city or town and state in which your nonprofit is located as well. So zoom in like that. And then the phone number and email address of your nonprofit. So this is all the contact information of the nonprofit that you chose. You can usually find this information on the nonprofit's website. Sometimes phone numbers are missing. Sometimes email addresses are missing. You can make that stuff up if you need to. And then right here, you put the date that the letter is being sent. And then below, for the full letterhead format, is you include your recipient's information, the person who you're sending or people you're sending the letter to. Ideally, you would put one person's name at the top, but since for this project you're addressing the city in which your nonprofit is located, you're asking them for donations to help their community. So you can just put here city of and whichever town or city location your nonprofit is located in. And then I think what works best is, who do you send it to? What address do you put? I think what works is just to look up the city hall of where the address of the city hall of that location. So for the student sample, she looked up where Albuquerque's city hall was and put that information below. I think that's the most efficient, makes the most sense. Feel free to get a little creative with that part if you'd like. What I'm looking at for letter format is that you have all of this here at the top. So that's a letterhead. That makes it letter format. Pay attention to the spacing too. If you notice, there's a space between your contact information, the date, and then the recipient. There's a little spacing in between. Spacing is so important in document design because it's that visual cue that reminds the audience that the information is separate and apart from each other. So don't neglect spacing. It's so important. And then you add a space, and then it's letter format. So you want some kind of opening greeting. Dear, to whom it may concern, are always the kind of good go-tos for letter format. Dear City of Albuquerque is perfect for this project, wherever, of course, your nonprofit's located. You're addressing the people in that community because you want donations from them to help the community problem that your nonprofit helps. So I'm going to break down this sample, and I'm going to bear with me. I'm going to jump back and forth. In theory, I thought my iPad would be helpful today, but I don't know. I always try different recording opportunities. So with the assignment guidelines, make sure you've reviewed the assignment guidelines. If you want to pause the video, read through them, because I don't want to talk over the entire guidelines line by line. Feel free to talk with me about them more one-on-one if you'd like. I'm just going to scroll to the format requirements part and go over it so you can compare it to the student sample. So you want an opening paragraph, very short, very quick, that establishes the community problem that your nonprofit is addressing and why it's important. Why is it worthy of people's time? Basically, what is the community problem that your nonprofit helps solve? So in the student sample, her nonprofit, Crossroads for Women, that she chose, helps women who struggle with mental health and who have been in jail for minor inconveniences, basically to get them back into their everyday lives, into society. So that's her opening. She has a brief description. You keep it brief with that opening because in the rest of the letter, you're going to expand on that in more detail. The next part of the letter is the second paragraph, is where you want to just describe what this community problem is. Show the community that the money that they can donate is doing important work. Your nonprofit is helping this community issue. What is the community issue? Why is it a serious community issue? And why is it worthy of people's donations? Why should they help? So right here, it's a reminder, don't hesitate to use quotes, statistics, links, etc. Any kind of evidence that you want to show that proves that it's a serious community issue. So when we look at that student sample, she hones in on the issue of helping to break the cycle many women face while trying to better their future due to different crises that they are dealing with in life. And so there's some statistics here about mental health, about substance abuse issues, about annual income level falling below the poverty line. Those are all great statistical data that she used, and even links the audience right here where it says click here to that data to give them more. If they're interested in learning more about the demographics, they can click there to learn more. So don't hesitate to quote statistics, data, link, anything. And don't overwhelm yourself with research. All of this information right here about the community issue came from the nonprofit's website. So use their website. It's there. They do the work for you. They're there to show you hey, we're credible. We're helping this issue. Here's why. So you can probably find the data about the community issue directly from their website. If you struggle with that, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to help. I love research, so I can help you find some data about that community issue that your nonprofit is addressing. And then in the third paragraph, you want to explain what work does your nonprofit do? Nonprofits can help in so many ways. Like when they receive donations, what do they do with that money? Do they help in the community? Do they have fundraisers? You want to get specific examples because you're assuming that your audience doesn't know too much about your nonprofit, but maybe they care a lot about that community issue, but they don't trust your nonprofit yet. They're not sure who you are. Are you legitimate? What work have you done in the past? Why is your nonprofit a worthy solution? Show that your solution is an appropriate fit to the problem. Basically, use specific examples of the work that your nonprofit has done in the past. And again, don't hesitate to use quotes. Testimonies are excellent from people who they've helped in the past. Data. examples of community events. So if we see in this paragraph, she expands on what Crossroads for Women has done. They provided over 20,000 hours of therapy. They have housing programs at these 2 locations to help people transition into their daily, into a sense of normalcy again, to break the cycle. They usually stay between 3 to 12 months. They receive therapy services. Over 800 women have received housing from the services provided by Crossroads for Women. They have received over $200,000 of donations. UNM is a philanthropic partner that has raised money for them as well. They also have an auction called Tea Time for Crossroads, and they have a wonderful quote of somebody who was a graduate of the program and why they helped them. So again, don't hesitate to link the audience to pages if they need to read more. Just be a little specific when you write it, of course, but use the link to help them learn more about what you just wrote. Quotes from people, any kind of specific evidence. If you want a number, try looking for 3 different examples of evidence to write about in this paragraph. That's a great kind of goal, so it's not too much. You don't want this letter to be longer than a page. This sample gets it in a page. I mean, it's a little over, but it's fine. It's a page. So you don't want it more than a page because you still want to get to the point. Your goal is to slowly convince the audience that it's a serious community issue to care about, and that it's a credible nonprofit due to all the success and help they've done in the past. And by the end, so when we get to that last paragraph, you want to be direct and close by, hey, we would love donations. So don't be afraid to be direct by the end. That's why you're not direct at first by asking. The purpose is to ask for donations, but you don't start with that because you're trying to persuade them, right? So you need to use credibility through data, through testimonies, through quotes, through community events, just to prove that it's a serious community issue and also bring credibility to your nonprofit. So by the end, they say, with your help, we can break the cycle because everyone deserves a chance to better their future and feel empowered by making a living for themselves. With your help, you can save a life. With your help, you can help foster animals. With your help, you can end the cycle of abuse. Whatever community issue don't be afraid to be direct. Don't be afraid to write in second person point of view when you ask for donations. Second person is when you use the words you or your, because you're talking to the audience directly. So it's a good way to make them feel inspired to help, because by the end, they've hopefully been persuaded at some way or another. Especially, this letter breaks it down in that way. If the audience reads this first paragraph and they have a strong desire to help this community issue, they'll keep reading. If they're not interested, they'll stop reading, but that's okay. You're addressing an entire city. So some people will drop off after they read that first sentence or two. But those who think, oh, wow, I'm really interested in this, let me learn more. Then they start to learn about the serious community issue and the data that supports it. Then they start thinking, okay, but who's this nonprofit? Do I trust them? And this is all that evidence about the nonprofit. So by the end, you lose people as the paragraphs go on, right? Because it's difficult to ask for someone to donate, right? It's all gained on trust, and if people can do it, understandably, right? But by the end, you've had some people hold on, and that's what's important. Plus, look up the nonprofit's website and see what types of donations they need. It doesn't always have to be money, right? This is about money. This is about donating supplies. This is about donating time. So it's just options for the audience. And then to fully close on letter format, you need a closing salutation. Sincerely, thank you, from. Any of those are usually universal to close. And then your name. And again, you're assuming that you work for this nonprofit. So what is your job title for the nonprofit? And that's letter format. If you also notice, I mentioned earlier about how you want it printable. You want to assume it would be printed as well. The reason it's also part of letter format that's important is if you notice, everything is aligned to the left. There are no indentions. So keep everything aligned to the left and don't indent any of your paragraphs. That also keeps it letter format for a more printable document if it was needed to be printed, if you printed it and mailed it to people as well, right? It doesn't have to be through digital. inboxes. So let me know if y'all have any questions. Like I said, take your time reading the assignment guidelines. Feel free to meet with me if you'd like to break down these assignment guidelines. That's what I'm looking at when I grade. Did you talk about the community problem? Did you give evidence to the community problem and the nonprofits work that they do? Did you explain how that work can help resolve the community issue, the specific examples of the work the nonprofit does? Did you close by asking for donations, and is it in letter format? So that's what we're looking at when we grade. Again, let me know if y'all have any questions. I'm excited to see what nonprofit you choose. It's such an impactful assignment.